Good afternoon, you lovely people. I sincerely hope you're having a really good start to your week. I've got some really cool hobby nightmares to share with you today, but before we get into that, if you like what I do, head over to Composite Games and give them some love. The promo code Northern Exile down below will get you 5% off at checkout. You already get 20% off most of their stock, if it's Games Workshop or whatever you need, so you could end up with 25% off at checkout. Every single time you do that, you do help me out on the channel as well. Because, you know, they do help me out in getting stuff for the Astral Blades and getting stuff for your prizes. I have just sent in an order today for the prizes from our last prize draw. If you want to be involved in our next prize draw, which will be on the... let me just check here. The 28th of August. Sunday the 28th of August. If you want to be involved in that prize draw, all you've got to do is become a member on the Patreon or a member of the channel, and you can, doesn't matter what kind of level you go at or what kind of money you give, it doesn't matter, you'll be entered into the prize draw where you have two chances to win £50 worth of Games Workshop models. How lovely is that? £50. Anyway, let's do some hobby nightmares, shall we? Awesome stuff. So, number one is Kiwi. He is back again, and he says, "Hi North, hope you are all good. I'm here to bring you a nice hobby story, more exactly a narrative match I had a couple of weeks ago." Alright, so this is a battle report style story. I hope it doesn't go into too much detail, you know what I'm like about those. So, Kiwi says, "We played 2,000 points of a Horus Heresy game, with mixed rules from 1st and 2nd edition. My opponent played Ultramarines, and I brought a cultist list with Alchem Jackals and Cult Horde Provenance. Okay, I don't know what that means, but I'm sure it was cool. The special rule was that my infantry models respawned on a 2+, and my tanks, 4 Lemon Russes, and on 4+, and the Ultramarines player had to survive for 6 turns until backup arrived to extract them." Right, so you basically got a Horde army coming at him, and he's got to survive for 6 turns before he can get extracted and he wins. Okay, cool. I do like games like this. I played one of them at the Games Workshop that I used to work at, where we had an Ultramarines guy, really nice guy, and he wanted to play this huge battle where he was using Gilliman to go after a rogue chapter, and I was like, well, it's your birthday, I'll bring my chapter in, and I'll be the rogue chapter. So yeah, I had to survive against an onslaught of Ultramarines. It was really, really cool, though. The table simulated a dug-in holdout, surrounded by craters and ruins. I love that. I fielded around 150 infantry models and 4 tanks. It felt like a never-ending tide of cultists, arriving from all sides and rushing the Ultramarines' lines. I knew my cultists had no chance since the mere bolt guns had AP5, and my boys only had a 5+ feel no pain save from the medics, the butchers, attached to the squads, and that my list was generally trash. However, my plan was not to give my opponents a good competitive match, but rather a narrative scenario where the Ultramarines had to come out on top and seize the initiative and come out victorious. It was a very fluffy match, and I could tell my opponent was having a lot of fun and was getting into the story of the match. That's awesome. Some cinematic highlights of the game. 20 inducted levies, armed with clubs and pipes, managed to charge the Ultramarines' lines and keep them locked in combat. Other levies managed to bog down some Terminators, and a squad of militia managed to hold their ground for 3 turns against Invictorus Suzerain and Remus Ventanus. I guess those are really plebeian Ultramarine names for characters. My Ogrins managed to kill a squad of 5 Terminators. Narrative-wise, the streets were so filled with the bodies of the Cult Horde that you couldn't take a step without walking on a corpse. The Ultramarines player managed to knock out 4 Lemon Rust battle tanks, which I left on the table and put them out in nice smoking wreck with fire markers inside of them, made out of cotton, or for cleaning your ears. With his Sicaran, and from the 3rd turn he started pushing out and seizing the game. The match obviously ended with an Ultramarine victory, but we had a very nice narrative and fluffy game. We were both excited at how the match had went, and decided to continue the story at a later date sometime in the future. These kinds of matches are the reason why I started the hobby, and I hope to keep up this spirit among the community here. Regarding the previous story I had submitted, the one with the AL dude that brought an annoying list, I forgot to mention that it was not an event or anything. It was just supposed to be a tutorial game for us to learn the basics of the new Horus Heresy rule set. Okay, cool. So, One sec. So, when you look back in previous editions of Warhammer 40,000, especially 3rd edition and things onwards from there, there are a lot of these editions of Warhammer 40,000 where the first half of the rules is mainly focused on teaching you that to play the game properly, you need to be telling a story, and you need to be having your opponent be engaged and involved and enjoying the game. The reason why I say quite a lot of the time that tournament play isn't what Warhammer 40,000 is all about, it's certainly a part of the hobby, but it's not the hobby. The hobby is the narrative side. I'm sorry, it just is. If most of the rulebooks in your editions are saying that is the front and centre thing that you should be focusing on, the narrative and the enjoyment of both players, I mean, there are tournament players who can make both players enjoy the game, don't get me wrong. But in terms of the actual game itself and what it's designed to do, narrative play is the way to go, at least for me. I don't decry tournament players for existing. I like tournaments. I like the fact that people get to go to them and enjoy the hobby in any which way that they want. But I do think that the actual core tenet of the hobby is storytelling, which is why I love it so much. And it's quite hard to tell stories when you're trying to get, points at an event, Anyway. George says, "Hello, I have a couple of short stories for you today." Okay, thank you, George. First one takes place in early 2018. I'd been going to a particular Games Workshop store for 7 years on a very regular basis to paint/play on my days off work, whilst the girlfriend was at the local university. Okay. The manager there was great. He was a Games Workshop veteran, so he was very knowledgeable on Warhammer and painting in general. Yeah, do you know what? Most veterans who've been there for upwards of 25 years, guys who were there right at the beginning, they tend to be the nice ones. They tend to be guys who, because they can't be sacked. It doesn't matter if they're store tanks, they can't be, it costs them too much money to sack them, so they just, they become really nice guys, for the most part. He would take part in games, give us painting lessons, but mostly sit at the painting tables and paint with us, talking about life, the hobby, and other interests. Yeah, again, here we go. So if I was caught doing any of those things at Games Workshop, I would get a warning. If I was caught playing games, if I was caught painting at the hobby table whilst those customers in store, if I was caught talking to the customers about anything other than the hobby and what they were buying next, I would get a warning. So it does show you that there are two almost classes of Games Workshop manager. If they can't sack you, they're just going to leave you alone, But anyway. He was also okay with you painting with non-Games Workshop tools and paints. And if he knew he was due a visit, he would always provide you with the Games Workshop alternative to the tools and paints you are using during this time. Fair enough, no problem. I was told when I was working at Games Workshop that we couldn't tolerate any sort of tools or paints that aren't Games Workshop in the store, because we don't know what's in them. So if somebody drinks a bit of paint and then takes a funny turn, like a kid or something, and the guys from the paramedics come in and say, "Hey, what's in this?" If it's Games Workshop, we can just call up head office and they'll give them a rundown of what's in the paint. If we don't know what's in there, we're liable for all sorts of lawsuits and things. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I was told. So he would always talk highly about his manager, and one day he got a random visit in the store. Let's just say the manager was not pleased, mainly because he had not sold enough Dark Imperium boxes that month, but other than that, it was because of the state of the store, quote-unquote, the state of the store. By this, he was talking about the intro table models not being painted, and the store manager's hobbies table, which was honestly just a mess of paints, glues, and part-built models and boxes, okay? The store manager was quite pissed at this point, at the area manager, and had a very loud discussion with the store manager in front of all the customers, who were all his close friends. Shortly after this, he unfortunately handed in his notice and left Games Workshop. This is where it turns for the worse. Okay, so, you've just proved my point. So this guy did get a bollocking. Okay, so normally, like the guys who are on there for ages, they're quite hard to sack, but they didn't sack him, I guess. He left of his own accord. But exactly what I was just saying, in that if I did any of those things in the store, I would get absolutely warned. And it sounds like this guy was caught with not with his pants down, but was caught, not towing the company line completely. So, got into an argument and left. But good to him for, you know, having his backbone and walking instead of just, you know, taking it on the chin like a good boy. All right. 2 weeks after the old manager left, a new one turned up. Let's call him Dave. So I need to just reiterate. For the story, because it hasn't really been explained by George here. So our lovely manager here, who's been really nice to his staff and customers, he gets a visit from his area manager. The area manager sees the state of the store, has a go at him, and all of a sudden, an argument ensues, and the manager leaves. So, unfortunately. 2 weeks after the old manager left, a new one turns up. Let's just call him Dave. I recognise Dave from another local-ish store, but overall did not have much experience with him. He greets me as I walk in the store, and he seemed very polite and welcoming. I grab some paints I was needing, and I go to sit down at the painting table, as I had done for years. What are you doing? Dave says. As Dave was new to the store, I explained to him that I had been coming here for years to paint and take part in the hobby with the local community. Dave was not happy with this, but he let me carry on with the atmosphere, but the atmosphere of the store weirdly got dull from then on. I hope you paid for those paints, because you didn't say that you paid for them. So if you took paints off the rack and go and sit down and start painting with them, I would be pissed off at you as well. But if you've gone and paid for them and sat down to do some painting, yeah, whatever, dude, it's fine. What I would say is that if there's a new manager in the store, this happened to me too. I did have hobbyists just coming in and not introducing themselves to me and just getting on with it like I wasn't there. That pissed me off. You know, and I would say, listen, you know, do you come here and paint? You know, you let me know what was normal, and you ask me whether you can carry on, right? That's the polite thing to do. The polite thing to do is to come into Games Workshop if I'm a new manager and say, listen, Simon or whatever, the last manager, he said that I could come in here and do painting. If I bought these paints now, am I right to sit down and do some painting? And to you, I would say, of course, my man, you sit down, have some fun, you know. Hey, how'd you take your tea? I've got a kettle in the back. I'd make you a cup of tea, you know. But don't come in and just sit down and not acknowledge the manager when you haven't seen him before. If he's new to that store, if you're a long-time regular. That's not on. That's not cool, right? It's just rude. And it makes that manager feel like they're not welcome. And, like, you know, it makes the manager, it almost puts down like a separation blanket between you and the manager, right? He's not part of your group now. It's not his job to ingratiate himself to you, right? It's his store and it's private property at the end of the day. I know it's going to sound harsh. It's your job to ingratiate yourself to him. Because at the end of the day, he can say, don't come back, don't come in here anymore. And you can't. He can literally call the police. Be like, this is private property. I've asked the person to leave, he won't leave, right? So, I know that's a hard line, but if you have a new manager in your store, to get off on the right foot, if your old manager let you do things, then go and ask the new manager if that agreement still stands. And 99 times out of 100, that manager's going to go, yeah, sure, man, no problem, right? But it just sets you off on the right foot. Now, don't get me wrong, there are douches out there, but at least then you know. If the guy says no, at least then you avoid like an awkward confrontation, and you're able to take your money and spend it elsewhere. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to go elsewhere then. No problem, you know? But don't just walk in and just carry on without introducing yourself. A few people did that with me, and I had to pull them up when I was running my store. I didn't like it at all, you know? And people who shake your hand and don't look at you in the eye, don't like it. I don't like that kind of shit. It just rubs me up the wrong way. Anyway, after this, I only went to the store a few other times. The community built around the store had died completely. Friends I had made just disappeared. Dave had taken the lively and friendly hobby shop and literally killed it. If you wanted to paint in store, you had to book in for a strict 45-minute session where he had to teach you how to paint, and games were more or less not allowed anymore unless Dave had some weird mission he wanted to play that he had made up. Okay, so I need to like defend Dave again here. This sounds to me like something's been lost in translation. This sounds to me, George, that you've gone in, not gotten a really good first impression and have walked away. What's happened here, and I'm going to tell you right now, is our new manager, Dave, has been told by head office, do not do what the last manager did, or we'll sack you. You know? That's literally what he's been told. He's been told, yeah, we sacked the last guy because he did this, this, and this, and we don't like these things. If you're going to do those things, do it this way. And so he's towing the company line, because he wants his job. And it sounds to me like, as much as I have a go at Games Workshop and the shitty managers that are out there, I think we also need to really put into perspective that these guys value their jobs, and these guys are allowed to run their stores in the way they see fit, and you are allowed to go into that store and not partake. You are allowed to do that, and that's what you did, Dave. That's what you did, George, which is great. But at the same time, I actually feel bad for this manager, this Dave, because this sounds like somebody who actually wants to do those things in the store, but has been told explicitly what to do and how to do it, rather than doing it any other way. So this sounds to me like a guy who really, really, really wants to run games in the store. This sounds to me like a guy who really, really wants to, do painting sessions in the store, but he's been told strict 45-minute painting sessions and this, and if we catch you doing anything else, we'll sack you, essentially, So, as much as I don't like it, I do feel for him. Bear in mind, Dave's models were not pretty. So, he shouldn't really be teaching anybody. Okay. He would paint his Space Marines in a thick layer of Xandri dust, slap on a coat of Agrax Earthshade, paint a freehand question mark on the shoulder and call it done, and he would display them in the front of the shop as if they were well painted. The displays in the shop used to be beautifully painted armies, painted by the community, but Dave took them all down and replaced them with his own crap. Yeah, okay, now I'm starting to lose sympathy for this guy. That's a douchebag move right there. Since then, I visited the shop a couple of times. Every time he has some bullshit reason for not serving me, or even opening the shop. What? He's not even opening the shop. These consist of the till not working. I cannot refund this item because it's not from this store. No. Here's another thing. Don't do that. Don't go and buy products from another store and go into a separate Games Workshop store to return them. That's douchebag behaviour. Don't do that. Do not do that. Because, again, I only say it's douchebag behaviour because you just haven't thought, right? But this is somebody's business, and with them giving you money out of their till to replace something, that's coming off of their overhead, that's coming off of their profits for that week, right? That's not fair. He hasn't sold you that defective item, but now he's paying the price. I don't know whether you've done that because you don't like him, but that's not good behaviour. Don't do that again, please. I implore you, don't do that, right? Even if the guy's a douche, don't hit people where it hurts, mate. Don't try and take money out of the rent fund, okay? Just don't go back to the store again. Vote with your wallet, but don't actively take money away from people. That's not right. That's not cool, right? If you have a defective product from Games Workshop, go back to the Games Workshop you got it from and get your money back. And if they say they can't, don't accept that. Don't accept that and give them the reason I just gave you. Say, look, I'm not taking this to another Games Workshop store because they're not the ones who sold me a defective fucking product. You did. You did. You sold me this defective product. You give me my money back. Or a replacement model. One of the two. Right? I don't care which it is. Give me my money back. Right? But I'm not having somebody else pay for your mistake. This would happen all the time with the guy who used to manage me. He would send people to my store all of the time looking for refunds. I'm a little store. He's in a massive store. And to keep his profits up, because they kept coming back and wanting to return things. Because what he would do, he would be really good at upselling. And so people would leave. They would regret their purchases because, they feel really bad about buying this thing. They would come back and try and return it. You'd say, oh, I can't do that, but here's the store you need to go and return it to. They would come to my store and return it and take the money out of my till. So if I made £300 that day, which is a good amount, and somebody came in from this douchebag store with £450 worth of models that they don't want anymore, I had to refund it for them, and I was now minus 150 for that day. And I would get a phone call from head office asking me what the fuck's going on. Don't do that. If a manager tries to fob you off that way, stand your ground and either demand that you speak to head office on his phone. Say, get your phone out, I want to speak to head office. Or demand your money back, because he has money in his till. Demand the money back. Say, I don't want the model anymore. Give me the money back, and I'll go and buy it from that store that you want to pawn your mistakes off on. Right? Sorry, But don't do that. Don't go to somebody else's store and refund something that's not from his store. Okay? Okay. Honestly, he says, this guy has so many sick days, I'm surprised he still has got a job. Okay, fair enough. Not a very dramatic story, I know, but this guy honestly killed a big part of the hobby for me. I think you're both in the right, George. This is the first time in a long time when I've come down on the side of a Games Workshop manager. I think a lot of things have been lost in translation here. I think a lot of things have been, you know, I think Dave's been given his marching orders, you know, to be honest with you. But, you know, it is what it is. Now this is where it gets weird. Dave is 38 at the time. I'm noticing that there are some 16 to 18-year-old girls hanging around the shop. Okay, well, I have to say, if they're 18, fair game. Sorry, I keep coming down on his side, dude, but if these girls are 18, they're fair game. They're adults. You know, I went to university at 24, and I dated exclusively 18-year-olds for 2 or 3 years, right? They're fair game. They're adults. Like, so, you know, let's not do the white knighting thing. If they're 16, then fair enough, that's fucking weird. Or even 17, that's weird. But anyway. I became friends with one of them for a short time after she was telling me how Dave is such a nice guy and how he is such a father figure to her. Okay. She also told me how she got drunk at his house the other week and that she is so trusting of him because he doesn't take advantage of her when she was blackout drunk. So obviously she's 18 then, because you can't get booze unless you're 18, unless she's doing it another way. Not even a month later, I saw them both at my local Asda, holding hands and kissing, not even a week after Dave had left his partner of 10 months, who he had a kid with. Okay, man. God, this is going to sound so harsh. This sounds like simping neckbeard behaviour from yourself. I'm really sorry, but it does. What Dave does in his private life has nothing to do with you. Right? This girl sounds 18 plus to me because she's drinking, right? Right? I know underage people can drink, but most of the time, you know, people are very, very on about, you know, I've worked in bars. We are very on about IDing people because we can get into serious trouble if we don't, right? Or even in off licenses and places like that, okay? So, if you see him, it's the fact that you saw him at Asda holding hands and kissing with a girl because he was nice to her, and he wooed her in some way, and that pissed you off. That's small dick behaviour, dude. Don't get like that. Don't be that guy, right? You don't like Dave. Fair enough. Then move on. Don't obsess about the guy. Don't even think about the guy. You got a girl. Good on him. Right? This girl sounds 18 to me. I'm not sure whether you're saying the 16 to 18-year-old girls thing because I know one thing 16-year-old girls don't do, and that's hang around Games Workshops. For the most part. Generally, it's university girls who hang around at Games Workshops if they are ladies. But at the end of the day, you know, but there's always, you know, exceptions to the rule, of course. But this sounds to me like there's this 18-year-old, 19-year-old girl at a shop. She likes Dave. Dave likes her. She goes round to his house. They hang around as friends. He doesn't take advantage of her by her own admission. And then later on, they fall into a relationship because they really like each other. There's nothing wrong with that, dude. And 18 is fair game. Get off your high horse. Stop with the small dick behaviour, okay? You don't like him. Great. Fine. No problem. But move on. Just move on. The next one takes place in 2013. I was at the same Games Workshop store, whilst it was under the old manager. So I was there painting on a Saturday as usual. There used to be a mentally disabled man who attended the store to paint just as I did. He would often speak to himself and say some interesting things, let's say. Okay, so this guy has made it clear that he hates One Direction, and the band One Direction, and one day out of the blue he says this: if I ever got my hands on One Direction, I will rip their clothes off with my bare hands, chain them up and whip them with my belt. At the time I didn't think much of it. Nobody took notice of him or said anything simply because of his condition, but all these years later, I cannot help but laugh every time I think about what he said. Fucking hell. I've got a couple of other stories to tell, one being a health concern regarding food at Warhammer World. Ooh, yes, send me that one. And the other one being that guy situation. No, the first one, the food one at Warhammer World. Because I really like the food at Warhammer World. So don't spoil it for me, but I actually want to hear that story. So yeah, please, if you could send them to me. Fair enough. I'm sorry for being like harsh there, but sometimes you seem like a decent guy, and some decent guys just need shocking out of small dick behaviour, and they'll stop doing it. Do you know what I mean? We're running out of time, so I'm going to do one by... Let's do one by Wind88. Wind88. So, hi Exile. I love your channel, and will become a Patreon member soon. Excellent, thank you, man. Here is a story that happened to me in the 1980s when our university group played a little of everything. We had a phase where we loved modern micro armor. Played it heavily for a couple of years until we found the inherent flaws in the game, its inability to simulate the intangibles that determine victories or losses. Desert Storm was supposed to be a bloody slog for the Coalition, and the Ukrainian invasion of 2022 was supposed to be a cakewalk, except they weren't. Okay, yeah, alright. Sounds good. In our group, we had a young lieutenant freshly commissioned in the army, Todd. He was a good gamer and had joined the local National Guard unit of mechanised infantry. This part-time unit had a solid background of senior non-commissioned officers and had a reputation of being quite better than our regular army units. Our young lieutenant wanted to score some brownie points and show this modern conflict game to his peers for possible use as a training tool. Oh, that's awesome, that's cool. He was granted permission to put on a game in the armoury building on a Saturday where they did not have a drill scheduled. The lieutenant let the overall referee of our games pick how to set it up, and the ref set up an Israeli brigade attack game against the Golden Heights, held in force by two battalions of Syrians. Okay, not a controversial game choice at all. The problem was that the ref decided to take advantage of the large amount of armoury and did not factor in the most interesting things happened on the gaming table at a metre or less. So he played a gaming board that was, I kid you not, the size of 2 basketball courts. But it didn't stop there. There was going to be a theatre. We had people to impress, and we had doggone better. What? And we had doggone better. Oh, doggone better simulate the air war going on unseen above our heads, and divisional artillery also, and some special forces and helicopters. You see where this is going. So, we walked into the armoury, introduced ourselves, typical geeky-looking nerds with one young officer in uniform, Todd, to this group of professionals. They were cordial, not exactly impressed, but wanted us to show them how this could help them as a training tool. So we set the board and game, and on turn 1, the attackers had moved their forces forward 8 centimetres towards the Golden Heights. Some 30 metres away. Sigh. The actual officers and NCOs thanked us, and said that they would stop by again at lunch and at closing to see what transpired. For 10 hours we played the game, neither force getting close enough to actually trade fire. We saw a few planes come down the battlefield, about 15 Syrians to each Israeli, as the air war soaked up 3 to 4 hours of time before we coached the ref to save it for another day. A Syrian Special Forces platoon was shot by an Israeli anti-air squad and then decimated by artillery. But the above 2 line sums were what 2 hours of gaming came to. The officers and NCOs came back at closing time. The NCOs, slightly bemused, thoughts hidden beneath their professional demeanour. This had been a first-class goat rope. I don't know what that means. And everyone in the room knew it, but was too polite to say the obvious. Todd was crushed, but recovered. We heard later that they did very well in his actual unit, rotated through the National Training Centre when they fought against the simulated Russian opposing force. The unit did so well that they were given the new Bradley vehicles before regular army units received them. Very high praise. Todd told us in later years that whenever he had a pie-in-the-sky idea or dropped the ball, his senior NCOs would ask if it was like that war game in the desert thing he had tried before. Professional as hell, respectful, but the message was clearly sent. Cheers. Jesus Christ, yeah, military guys don't fuck around. But at the same time, why didn't you just shorten the field, for fuck's sake? Why do you have a 30-metre gaming board? Just go in. You know what you do best. You know that you're the guy who does the wargaming. Come in and say, yeah, this is wrong. This is wrong. So the first thing we're going to do, guys, is a teamwork training exercise. The training exercise is to stop fucking up my war game and set up the table properly. Get rid of 90% of this terrain and let's actually play a war game. This is stupid. You've done this like army people. Just, you know, just go in with that attitude, man. Go in and make sure that you set it up, because you're not giving your game the right to breathe if they're just moving around. It sounds to me like you're like a deer in headlights here, you know, that kind of thing. But anyway, those are my hobby nightmares for today. Thank you very much for sending them in. We had some really interesting ones today, and we have some really interesting ones for later in the week too. I probably won't be on Wednesday because I'm taking my daughter out to do a few things again. So I might do a Hobby Nightmares tomorrow, or I might do a Hobby Nightmares on Thursday to make up for the fact that we're not getting one on Wednesday. But leave that with me. Love you a long time. Have a lovely day. An absolutely amazing day. I will speak to you tomorrow or on Thursday. But until then, love you. See you later. Be safe. Have a good one.